Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next, what the Ravens will do in the 2025 offseason to build a contender. Let's talk. Well, you guys know that I have been on this 2-video conversation with you guys concerning what the Baltimore Ravens could learn from both the Chiefs, the Eagles, and also the 49ers and the Rams, all teams who have visited a Super Bowl multiple times over the last 7 to 8 seasons. And we identified several things. Of course, we identified the general manager work, right? Or the ineffectiveness of that. And then right on time, EDC does an interview with Todd McShay. And you guys know what I do here. You guys know that when I talk about something, I'm going to squeeze every ounce of information out of it so that either we can find understanding or throw it out as false. And so I think EDC revealed something to us in his interview with Todd McShay that I have not spoke about yet. So let's take a listen to the actual clip that I'm referring to, and then I'll come back and tell you what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so you try to figure out what he does best and then what kinds of players he likes to throw the ball to. And so in his case, it's actually coincidental, but also, we were lucky that he loves to throw to tight ends.
Yes.
Right. So we had drafted Hayden Hurst, ended up trading Hayden, but Hayden and Mark Andrews.
Yeah. Right.
So he had these like really comfort pieces for him. And then offensive line wise, and so that same draft class, we drafted Mark Andrews and we drafted Orlando Brown, and we had Ronnie Stanley and Kevin Zeitler. We built an offensive line around him that suited what we do, which is run the football. We believe in having good backs. We added backs. We added Mark Ingram that first year. We drafted J.K. Dobbins. We signed Gus Edwards as an undrafted guy. But over the years, Justice Hill is a good player for us now. Derrick Henry. We've always had like multiple backs.
Yeah.
That we can rotate and guys to be productive. And we've tried to add. Always try to add speed to the field. We feel like Lamar being the type of player he is, he presents so many challenges for linebackers in the front. Getting guys outside. So we drafted Hollywood. We drafted Zay. We drafted Bate. We've allocated a lot of resources. We don't have that. The one piece we probably missed on is that big X presence. We've never really had that. We've tried to find that guy. That guy doesn't go on trees, right?
Right.
Guys, right? That's probably the one thing. But for us, it's always been, okay, offensive line, first and foremost, keep it strong. Now, we made some changes this year. We had some guys leave, but I think the line this year, we ended up pretty good. But we allocate a lot of resources to the offensive line, running backs, tight ends, and receivers. But then also, I think on defense, we've always been a stingy defense in terms of preventing the run. Okay, we're a ball control team. We like to control the ball. 4 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it is. We want to make sure if we get in the fourth quarter of a game, we have the lead. We're tough to play against.
Yeah.
We want to choke the other team out, basically. We run the ball, take our shots downfield, but control the clock. So part of that is not letting the other team control the ball, right? So we have a strong defensive line. We stop the run as best as we can. Our secondary wasn't that great this year, as good as it could have been. It came on in the second half of the season. But what we saw this year with Lamar and the growth of Lamar is we became a team this year that could come back from double-digit deficits, which we've never really been. We've morphed under Todd Monken and all the different things that we do offensively. Lamar has improved every year as a passer. We've added more talent around him. The line's doing their part. And we went from being a very run-centric offense to being a very balanced team this year that can score in many different ways.
When you listen to what EDC actually says, Todd McShay is asking him in context after he understands, after the Ravens know that Lamar Jackson is their guy, right? He's their franchise quarterback. He asked him, how did you decide to build around him? EDC goes on this narrative, which you've already heard. But I want to kind of focus in on 3 things that he mentions, which I think will speak to what you see the Baltimore Ravens do this offseason. And if these things actually get done, it should be an exciting offseason for the Ravens. One of the first things you recognize the EDC says is they have not yet found that big wide receiver. You heard him speak to Lamar Jackson liking to throw to the tight end, but he specifically highlights that they have not yet, despite all of the assets they've put into the wide receiver position in the context of draft capital, they have yet to bring in, to nail down that big X receiver. What that means is he's not speaking to what they knew after 2 years. He is actually telling us that they're still trying to find that big wide receiver. I think that speaks to what we're going to see this offseason. I think we're going to see the Baltimore Ravens make a real attempt to get Lamar that big-bodied wide receiver, whether he plays in that number 1 spot, the number 2 spot, or even the number 3 spot. I think we will see the Baltimore Ravens make a real attempt to do some work to get a guy in-house. And so when I begin my free agency and draft conversations post the Super Bowl, then we will be having that mindset as we put together some free agency draft moves. Okay, so I think we can expect that. Another thing you heard EDC mention is building an offensive line, and then he jumps back quickly and says we made some moves or some changes last offseason. I think you're going to see some change along the offensive line. I think you may see them move Roger Rosengarten over to the left side, or you'll see them try to bring in a left tackle. Now, the only guy that's rated above Ronnie Stanley as a left tackle is going to be Cam Robinson, and I'm not sure what you guys think about him. I think just because of his youth, he may be a better option, but I think you're going to see them move Roger Rosengarten to the left tackle and go out and find a right tackle. I think you're going to see them put some effort and energy into finding an upgrade at that left guard position. You see, remember again, the nature of the question was after 2 seasons or after a couple of seasons, how did you see building around Lamar Jackson? And I think that EDC is speaking specifically of what he's thinking and trying to do now. So I think you're going to see some upgrades and some, how you would say, some fresh blood, so to speak, along the offensive line, specifically at the tackle positions and at the left guard position. All 3 positions that were vacated or renovated last season. Left guard was renovated, right guard also, and right tackle. So I think you should see some activity there. And that's something we should be excited about, being able to get, or at least make an effort to get that big wide receiver, and then also being able to upgrade once again the offensive line. I think you also heard him speak to the being able to stop the run. I think you may see some change along the defensive line. There's a lot of money sitting down in that interior defensive line, but I think he's going to do something at the pass rush position, a position that has been struggling for many, many years. You even heard him reference the loss of Zadarius Smith, which was many, many years ago. But Zadarius Smith or Matt Judon has not necessarily been replaced as it pertains to a guy who can go get the quarterback on his own. And so I think that you're going to see those 3 things be a focus. I know we've heard many speculations about cornerback and what they might do at safety, so on and so forth. But I think these are the 3 positions that will be a focal point in free agency and also in the draft. Let me take you behind the curtain into something that EDC said also in this interview that may speak to some change. Although difficult, it may speak to some long-standing Ravens being moved on. When he talked about something that he learned from Ozzie, and he specifically referenced Anquan Boldin being a great Raven, but because of the cap issues, they had to trade Anquan Boldin and probably didn't get value back for him necessarily.
You learned a lot from Ozzie. There's no denying that, and I know you're the first to promote that. If you can just think back, right, all your time with Ozzie, what was the toughest lesson you learned from him?
Yeah, there's a lot, but I would say you have to sometimes do what's right for the organization, even though you know it's the wrong thing to do. And what I mean by that is, like, we had a player that historically was just one of the great Ravens of all time, Anquan Boldin. We traded for Anquan. He was a total stud as a person, on the field, off the field, just epitomized what it meant to be a Raven, like a guy that when you went into Pittsburgh, you wanted Anquan.
Right. And
the reality of it is we were in a bad cap situation and we had to trade him. And we didn't get much for him. And it was a horrible football decision, but we had to do it. And it was hard. And I think sometimes you have to just accept that you have to make the hard decision. We might have made it work. We could have probably finagled.
If you think about it, Anquan Boldin was a big time contributor and one of the main catalysts for the offense taking a step forward in that championship year or those championship years. And I think that when you compare Anquan Boldin to some of the guys who are on the team and have been major contributors, I think you're going to see one of those long-standing Ravens be moved on, whether that's Mark Andrews, whether that's Marlon Humphrey, who spoke about himself not having any more guaranteed money, or whether that's letting Ronnie Stanley walk in free agency. One of these three guys, I believe, will not be on the Ravens in the 2025 season. Matter of fact, a couple of these guys may not be on the Ravens. And so it's super interesting as we have roughly 30 days before free agency really gets going to see the work we do. I think that we could see a couple of trades before free agency actually takes place, specifically after the league year starts, because you have to be under the cap when the start of the season happens. And so I think we could see some of the long-standing Ravens depart from the team. And that could even be, moving on from a Patrick Ricard also. And so when I do my drafts and free agency stuff, I have replacements for everybody, because everybody I think could be a potential loss for the Ravens this offseason. Not a loss as in we won't be able to replace them, but a loss in the context of somebody that the Ravens had became familiar with, somebody that they referred to as family, a brother, that kind of thing. I think those guys could be moving on, or at least a couple of them. So let me know, guys, what you want me to know. I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.